Some minutes ago it was here. Line.
Yeah, but he was saying something about maybe turning off the cameras. Maybe he's having issues with bandwidth. And let me check.
Ok.
Carmelo, puoi provare a chiamarlo mentre io comincio a presentare?
Sì, aspetta, sospendo la mia connessione sonora.
Okay. So, welcome everybody to the Land Use Monitoring for Sustainability Workshop 2020. And this workshop has been around for some years now and is currently chaired by a bunch of researchers, 4 of which are based at the Polytechnic University of Bari. You can read yourself the names here. And then there are other researchers that are based at 3 further universities in central and southern Italy. And today's session is going to be... yes, now we hear you. Are you ready to present, Francesco? I'm just saying a few words about the session, and then I would leave the floor to you. Are you ready to present? Okay, fine.
Yes, thank you.
Today's session, in today's session, 3 papers will be delivered, and with no further delay, I'm going to leave the floor to Francesco Rotondo, who is presenting a paper co-authored by himself together with Giovanni Marinelli and Luca Domenella. The 3 of them are based at the Polytechnic University of the Marche region. And the paper's title is Shrinking Phenomena in Italian Inland Mountainous Areas, Resilience Strategy. So please, Francesco, can you share your video presentation?
Can you see it?
Not yet.
You see it?
Not yet.
Now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
You have this, Francesco, because there are only 3 presentations, so I think we can allow 10 minutes each.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. Good evening to all. Thank you for this possibility to present this paper because it is talking about something that is a sort of mix of different and multiple phenomena related to the same territory, but with multiple dimensions. Because as you have seen in the title of the paper, we are talking about inner areas in the mountain of the Marche region. That is an area in which we have certainly inner areas, but we have also a large presence of shrinking phenomena. And we have also, after 2016, the consequences of a large and big, very damaged earthquake. So in this context, that is very particular from a landscape point of view, environmental point of view, this is a sort of big reserve of ecosystem services, we can say, not just for Italy, as the Nature 2000 has already discovered in Europe. And for these reasons, it is, in our opinion, a sort of laboratory of what this kind of territories can become, especially because they have these multiple questions to answer. In fact...
Ajde, ja za manje od sat vremena vodim sesiju, pa da se spremim. Da.
There's someone who are talking.
Yeah, may I please ask anybody who has joined the session but is not going to present to please switch off their microphones. Thank you.
Thank you. For example, here you can see where the Marche region is in the center of Italy. and where there is what it is called the seismic crater. That is the area in which there have been the large and most evident effect of earthquakes of 2016. That is the large areas of 3 regions, Marche, Abruzzo, and Umbria, and Lazio, 4 regions, and that has a very large presence. You can see in these red colors, green colors, sorry, of inner areas, of peripheral municipality and ultra-peripheral municipality in the scale established by the Italian government with its strategy of inner areas, promoted by Fabrizio Barca and proposed also in 2009 to the European Commission. This is the area damaged by the earthquakes, and you can see the 4 regions here, with the biggest damage in the area of Camerino in the Marche, Norcia in Umbria, Amatrice in Lazio, and also the Ascoli Piceno area, always in the Marche region. And you can see also that Marche region has been the region more damaged by this earthquake. So this phenomena is another phenomena on the inner areas. These 86 municipalities in the Marche region has had a lot of very big consequences. You can see in this graphic that with the blue color are the municipalities in which they have had more than 50% of houses completely damaged and not possible to reuse. So in these municipalities you have had a very large damage. Here in this table we have described all the data of these municipalities, and you can see, especially in the resident population, that we are talking about of very little municipalities. The biggest is Camerino with just 7,000 inhabitants, but you have municipalities such as Bolognola or Montegallo or Montecavallo that have just 100, 200 people, inhabitants. So we are talking about effectively of inner areas damaged by earthquakes made by small municipalities. These are the damages that have touched these municipalities, the level of damage that you have already seen in the precedent graphic. And this is also the way in which the Italian government has tried to respond to the earthquake of 2016, and that is an answer to the housing emergency that has been the focus of the majority of policies that the Italian government has done in this area. That is another point on which we can do some reflections later. And you can see that a large amount of people has received contribution to rent a new accommodation. Another group of people is finding their accommodation in hotel, normally on the coast areas. Another relevant part of people is finding their new house in what they have called emergency housing, and we will see some example of this. And the last part of people have founded their accommodation in other facilities. This is an image of works necessary to do to build new emergency housing, and especially new urbanization for these emergency housing. In our opinion, it has been important to have a photo of this phase of the building process, because you can see how territory has been changed. No, it is all transformed, all urbanized. So effectively, these areas have been totally transformed. And this is the day after, when they have finished these emergency houses. And this has been done for all the municipalities described in these figures. These are all emergency areas housing that we have mapped and that we have put on our cartography, just to have the sense of the diffusion of this kind of solution. And as you can see, they are areas of a great landscape value, as this one in the province of Macerata. It is in a wonderful valley between mountains, or this one inside mountains, very, very nice place with a lot of green forest, normally untouched, and that has been transformed to respond to this emergency. It is also interesting understanding that normally the risk of earthquakes that we can analyze using the ground acceleration and describe its distribution on the entire nation, normally this risk is very near to inner areas. I want to say that normally a lot of inner areas in Italy corresponding to areas on the Apennino mountains that are more subject to earthquake risk. So this is not a special condition of Marche, but it is a normal condition. Here you can see, for example, Subappennino down in Apulia region, or Basilicata region, Campania, Calabria, but also until here Tuscany. So this is a normal condition. So we have to analyze very often this multiple dimension of the problem, where we have territory, fragile territory, subjected to earthquakes, that is a very hard risk, that are normally also inner areas. That it means that they are very distant from utilities and services of a regional level in some sense. So they don't have an easy access to all these services and utilities, and this is also the reason why they are inner areas, and they have a very fragile economy, and normally they suffer also of the shrinking phenomena, because people are leaving these areas to go living in the coastal areas. So these are fragile territories with multiple problematic components, as we have said. What has been the answer of the Italian government? They have established an extraordinary commissioner for 2016 earthquake reconstruction that could have a special role, a special power. So, in some sense, we can imagine he has the power to do all it is necessary. Anyway, what we have analyzed from 2016 to today is that they have used a building-centered centered approach on safety, very sectoral approach, all dedicated to the resolution of a housing emergency that naturally is the first thing to do. But in our opinion, just because this is a fragile territory with multiple problematic components, it is not the best way to face this problem in this area, because on the contrary, for example, of what has been done in the Emilia-Romagna region that has a different situation. In this kind of region along the Apennino mountain, where we have all these multiple problematic components, building the strategies to regenerate this territory, they can't be centered on a building approach just to solve the house emergency, because it neglects in some sense the fundamental relationships that in these territories are very strong between settlement contexts and urban functional systems. So in this area especially, the building risk mitigation interventions involve a large urban impact. They don't have to be sectoralized specifically on the building emergency, because they need to be evaluated and readjusted in some sense, taking into account the spatial, hierarchical, functional organization of the urban context in which they are implemented. Because they aren't just, in these areas, you don't have to solve just the last problem of the earthquake and so the last problem of the building, but you have to regenerate a territory that has already other problems, such as that of being in inner areas, that of being an area composed by multiple small towns with a fragile economy. So, as also the extraordinary commissioner has recognized, the problem in this area is ensuring the effectiveness and efficiency of risk mitigation actions. This is the key objective, but the question is how we can reach this goal, because it is, in our opinion, necessary to identify suitable methodologies to relate not only the building to the urban environment, but the buildings and the urban environment to the environmental aspects, but also to cultural and economic issues, engaging local communities and individual citizens in the decision-making process. Since the promotion of safety to face natural hazard means not just preventing or limiting the damage caused by natural disasters, as we can see it has been done in areas such as Emilia-Romagna, but we have seen many times in areas of California in the United States, where economy, accessibility to services and facilities is normal. But it needs in this area also inventing on competitiveness and quality of the involved territories. In fact, in our opinion, new strategic land use objectives should include future visions shared by many small towns in a circular economic process associated with new forms of governance of that territory. In that territory, the municipality form of governance is not anymore the best one, because it cannot assure the capacity, the accessibility to regional facilities and services. And moreover, it needs to assure the access on advanced technological networks providing regional and supra-regional remote protection and assistance. This pandemic, the COVID-19, has taught us, and we are living in this way, the usefulness of remote co-working. And in those territories, it becomes really fundamental to promote this. So the slogan "Building Back Better" that has been made by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction have to be applied not only to buildings or physical infrastructure, but to a much broader attitude in this territory. That's what we would like to put in evidence after all the analysis that we have done in the paper. So thanks for your attention.
Thank you, Francesco. It took a little bit longer than 10 minutes. So if there is a very quick question that anybody would like to ask to Francesco, otherwise I would leave the floor to the next presenter.
I have a question.
Yeah, yes, please.
Very brief.
Very quick one, Carmelo.
Okay, very brief. Did you consider a comparison between other cases post-earthquake? Because there are many areas in Italy interested by the problem and with the not satisfying solution after the earthquake. Just this.
Yes, we have talked about Emilia-Romagna. That is, in some sense, a good case of regeneration after the earthquake, in our opinion, just analyzing data, no? But effectively, there has been the case of the earthquakes of 1980 in Basilicata and Campania, where we have had similar effects, also because they need also this new way of thinking about the regeneration after the earthquake. So effectively, it is a question to analyze.
Yeah, thank you, Francesco. If you could please stop your screen sharing, I would then leave the floor to the next speaker. And
okay.
She's Maria Reitano, and she's presenting, yeah, thanks. Presenting a paper whose title is Evaluating Social Spatial Exclusion, Local Spatial Indices of Segregation and Isolation in Naples, Italy. The paper is co-authored by Maria herself and Maria Cerreta and Giuliano.
Thank you.
Please, Maria.
Good afternoon. I'm Maria Reitano. I'm going to share the presentation. So tell me if you can see it.
Not yet.
So not yet. So I'm trying to share it with a button.
The bottom is on the...
No, I can find the button, but... So I think the...
Valentina, might it be that the previous speaker is still sharing his screen?
Allow me to share my screen.
Try to click the icon on the bottom on the right, the share icon. Click there.
Yeah.
And click on the images that appear on your screen.
Yes, but the problem is that my browser doesn't.
What is your browser?
Safari.
Okay. So if you want, I try to share for you.
Yeah.
Your presentation.
Yeah, maybe because I cannot do that.
Can I also jump in here? There's somebody else who's sharing his or her screen, so that should be stopped.
Okay. So you sent your presentation on IoT platform or not?
Yes. It should be there.
Yeah, she did. But Valentina, if you prefer, I can do it.
Okay. Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
I could just refresh the link and then it will go. I don't know. I'm so sorry for that.
Can I suggest to Maria to use Google Chrome?
Yes, I try.
If you have Google Chrome, usually it is easier by Google Chrome. Sorry, because me too, I have always some problems with Safari. That's why.
Okay, then I try that, but we could, I don't know, skip my presentation and I do that. I don't want to be late. No, I'm so sorry. I try now.
Is her camera on or off? Because it seems like everybody has turned off the camera, so it means that nobody has turned on. I mean, she should have a turn on camera, maybe.
The all camera are.
She had it, in fact.
That's
I don't know.
my camera on now. Maybe it is that. I share my screen now.
Try to Google Chrome.
Yeah. Sorry. I'm very sorry for that. So I will leave the meeting now and then enter it again from Google Chrome, and then I will try again.
Okay.
Sorry.
No problem, Maria. I was just thinking that maybe we could go ahead with the third and final presentation, and then once Maria is ready, she can deliver her presentation.
Okay.
So if you agree, yeah. So if you agree, I would do that, and that leaves Pasquale Balena and myself ready to present this paper. So I am going to share my screen. Would you please turn off your mic presenting or otherwise speaking?
Please turn on your microphone. Excuse me, the new relator, turn on the microphone.
Sorry? Can you see my...
Okay, now, okay.
So I'm going to present now, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to present the third paper together with Pasquale Balena, and the paper was co-authored by main authors. These are Manuela Persia, Pasquale Balena, and myself, Alessandro Bonifazzi, and then also Maria Immacolata Marzulli, Antonio Orlando, and Carmelo Torre. The paper is Sustainable Local Development and Smart Specialization Strategies, Recent Developments in Agri-Food Research and Innovation Partnerships in Puglia, Italy. This is the outline of the presentation, but with no further delay. And so as for the problem setting, global food systems are facing very difficult challenges nowadays because they are to even double their crop production by 2050 in order to feed a constantly growing world population. But already at the moment, the pressures that the food system worldwide is putting on the planetary boundaries extremely high. As you can see on the left, there are at least 3 areas related to climate change, biodiversity, and chemical contamination of soils that are considered to be already exceeding the planetary boundaries. That is the capacity that our planet has to absorb and act as a buffer with respect to environmental pressures and impacts. At the same time, there are also very important social and economic impacts that relate to how unhealthy food is actually acting as a killer in some sense, because there are so many important diet-related chronic diseases that are responsible of a huge amount of death, premature deaths every year. And at the same time, almost 1 billion people are undernourished. As for the very limited contribution that we tried to do, this had to do with knowledge and information systems, which appear to be relatively highly variable across Europe and relatively weak, but especially highly fragmented in Italy in particular. So we wanted to focus on the potential of agri-food research and innovation activity to contribute to sustainable local development. And we tried to do so by watching at the bridging potential of research and innovation with respect to, on the one hand, smart specialization strategies, and on the other hand, of agriculture and rural development policy. We were especially interested in open innovation, that is a growingly important paradigm that is understood as the co-creation of knowledge and innovative products or services or policies by a collaboration and network of both researchers, entrepreneurs, civil society organizations, and civil servants and local governments. So our is an exploratory study that looked at recent agri-food research and innovation activity in Puglia, discovered both research projects and patents, and we surveyed 47 research centers that actually were affiliated to any larger research, 11 larger research institutions, and we found out that 40 agri-food enterprises had been involved in this research and innovation activity. The research questions we started from were on one hand relatively of a descriptive nature, since we were wondering what was the focus of research and innovation activity in the agri-food sector in the Puglia region. We were also interested in understanding how this research and innovation activity was evolving, and if there were hints of open innovation becoming more important and influential. More specifically, we also wanted to see how the influence of smart specialization strategies, and specifically of the one that was adopted by the regional government following the European innovation strategy, was actually playing a role in linking this research and innovation activity to sustainable local development. Just a few words about the study context. So Puglia lies in the southern easternmost part of Italy. It stretches over 20,000 square kilometers, and there are around 4 million inhabitants. The territory is mostly flat, and it was once dominated by extensive agriculture, and there were also a few but relatively important trading centers. It may be described as a mixed economy. There is a growing service sector and also a few industrial poles, although most of them are experiencing important crises. One might think at Taranto in particular. When it comes to currently used agricultural areas, this is rather used by a few land which are arable land, olive groves, and vineyards, which are definitely dominant. We built up a methodology that was actually a step-by-step, started by exploratory mapping the research and innovation organizations, and which were basically universities, main universities, and then smaller or local branches of national research institutions or highly specialized, a few highly specialized research organizations. And then we started from the activity. When I refer to the term activity, I'm actually implying that these could be either projects or patents, as I said, And by looking at them, we try to understand whether they were part of innovation clusters, and if so, we then looked for other activities by the other partners involved, or if they had been funded by specific policies or funding programs, then we try to browse through the relevant sources and find more research and innovation activity. So we kept iteratively updating this data set, and then we categorize it based on the main categories that are used by the smart specialization strategy. And finally, we analyze the data, most importantly, by means of social network analysis. As for the categories I was referring to, these are mainly clusters, geographically defined or by means of their specialization, or they refer to the value chains, or again, also smart specialization priorities or key enabling technologies were used to categorize the different activities. The data set allows us to identify 11 larger research organizations, as you can see, and they have been described following the number of different research units each is split into, and also the number of projects and patents that we were able. Of course, there are likely to be more, but these are the ones that we identified in the exploratory study. And as for the first part of the results, we can see that there is a concentration of research and innovation activity in the agri-food sector in a few value chains, and these are not necessarily the most relevant ones when it comes to production share. And there is also a difference between projects and patents. And for example, the olive oil value chain is relatively well represented with 13% of the projects, but then is completely absent when it comes to patents. And the other way around with logistics, for example, of course, these are not, strictly speaking, value chains, logistics and labeling and certification, but they were included here because they were very relevant to the project, the territorial cooperation project. This research has been carried out in the framework of, this was the Interreg Greece Italy innovative networks for the agri-food sector projects, internets. And also, with respect to key enabling technologies, we can see a further polarization. So there were very few key enabling technologies that took the main share in both projects, and especially in patents, where only 2 key enabling technologies, namely nanotechnologies and industrial biotechnologies, are represented. We were very much interested in understanding how collaborative research and innovation had been carried out. And that is why we resorted to social network analysis to try and understand something better. So we are going to show 2 diagrams only. They were both built with a JFE software package. And basically the 2 diagrams are built around the same indicator. And this is the degree centrality indicator with weighted edge and specific layout algorithms that are mentioned here. But of course, we computed also many more, and we will say something about it soon. So in this diagram, research centers are represented as red nodes, whereas agri-food business are in green. And what we can see is that there is a layered structure of the network. Most centers are relatively well connected, and there are of course at least 3 network components: a very highly connected core component, and then 2 decreasingly but still relatively well connected peripheral components. It is interesting to note that there is a hyper-connected core of only 4 research centers which were involved in a huge amount of projects. And yes, all of them are research centers. You can see that there is at least 1 agri-food enterprise on the right next to these 4 components that is very well connected, but still research organizations, according to this analysis, are definitely more central to research and innovation than agri-food enterprises. However, if we look at a subset of projects that was where at least one agri-food enterprise was involved, because actually it is important to notice that only 1/3 of the projects involved at least two partners. So most of 2/3 of the overall research and innovation activity in the agri-food sector in Puglia is actually carried out by one center alone, and these are almost always research organizations. But in this subset, where also agri-food enterprises are involved, the resulting network is much more fragmented. There still is a core of hyper-connected nodes and centers, but this time they are both research centers and agri-food enterprises. And it is also interesting to notice that there are subclusters of organizations that are connected among themselves, but almost completely disconnected from the others. And especially on the right of the diagram, you can spot two networks of almost only agri-food enterprises, the green nodes, with two research centers that are linking them and actually have a very high betweenness centrality, meaning that without them, these two subcomponents would be almost completely disconnected from the overall network. We also tried to translate this network analysis into spatially explicit terms, but actually this was the weakest part of the study. And besides mapping the seats of each organization or firms, and of course identifying some clusters. For example, in the bottom pane, you can see a cluster of research organizations in the city of Bari. But this part of the analysis was really lagging behind, and we are planning to enhance it in following steps of the research. So when it comes to conclusions, we might say that recent research and innovation activity in the agri-food sector in Puglia seems to be aiming for some form of sustainable agriculture intensification. This is a major global trend nowadays, and which may be described as trying to get more food with less impacts. Although, when you look at the specific characteristics of the research and innovation projects and patents in terms of smart specialization priorities, you see that sustainable manufacturing and human and environmental health are the only very well represented priorities. And moreover, they tend to translate into projects that exclusively deal with industrial biotechnology and advanced materials and nanotechnology, which means that further investigation is definitely needed if we really want to understand whether this kind of sustainable agriculture intensification is actually contributing to tackling these challenges I was referring to at the beginning of my presentation, that somehow should work towards a transition to sustainable and fair food systems that are able to stay within the planetary boundaries. We saw at the beginning that the current food systems are definitely stretching beyond planetary boundaries, and we need to bring them back with planetary boundaries. And it is not clear whether this approach to sustainable agricultural intensification can actually deliver in this perspective. And there also seems to be emerging a friction between a dominant approach to research and innovation that is industry-driven and knowledge-intensive, and another underlying motive that is still relatively strong, which may be defined in terms of place-based innovation patterns that try to tap into rather the intangible potential of social and relational capital. And these are basically what are usually described as alternative food networks. Finally, there is limited evidence that open innovation is already playing a significant role. It's interesting to notice that only 40 out of more than 80,000 agri-food firms were, according to our sample, of course, were involved and been involved over the last 10 years in agri-food research and innovation activity. Although this very limited number of enterprises seem to be very active, because most of them have been involved in at least 5 research projects. The emerging research and innovation networks seem to be centered around a few hyper-connected intermediaries, most of which are research centers, but there are also some consultancy firms or agri-food enterprises. And so social networks analysis seems to be describing what is termed as a small world model, where almost any actor is relatively well connected to all others. This could be either good news or very bad news, meaning that it might mirror a situation where the research and innovation directions are mostly uncharted, and there is a lot of untapped relational resources in the agri-food sectors, which might be explained by the persistence of dominant positions of a few actors in the research and innovation market. I thank you for your attention, and I would now like to check whether Maria is ready to present.
So I am ready. So
yeah,
I try again to share.
Yeah, I kindly ask you, anybody else, to switch off their cameras and microphones, and I leave the floor to Maria Reitano.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So.
I remember you, Maria, that you have 8 minutes for your presentation.
Yes.
I think it would be fair to allow her at least 10, because actually we spoke more, and since it is the last presentation, I think, yeah.
Thank you. So can you...
We now see the screen, Maria, so please.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Okay, so the contribution was written by me, Professor Maria Cerreta, and Professor Giuliano Poli from University of Naples. I'm going to show to you a brief introduction, our methodology, our case study that is Naples, and some results we obtained until now, and some conclusions. So we are working within a European research project that is called PUSH, Public Spaces in European Social Housing. In particular, we are working with the Italian partner, that is Professor Laura Lieto from University of Naples, and we are dealing with the issue of planning with informal publicness. In particular, we are now investigating the issue of segregation and its consequences within public space. In particular, our research questions are how to investigate this phenomenon as a complex one, in particular through its double dimension of social and spatial segregation. And we also want to understand how this phenomenon is has impacts or has had impact from social housing planning. Our methodological evaluation framework has, of course, a phase of goal definition, that is assessing social spatial segregation. Then we investigated the scientific landscape. We selected some spatial segregation indices, and then we applied these indices in our case study, obtaining some segregation clusters maps. So our goal here is to build an approach that is able to grasp this multidimensional issue through, as I said, its social and spatial aspects. So we investigated the scientific landscape, through a bibliometric analysis and mapping of data coming from Scopus and Web of Science. So from our research questions, we choose some keywords and we obtain some research fields. We can see these are many research fields, but in particular 3 major clusters. And these are spatial segregation, gender segregation, and racial segregation. And then we obtain 2 scientific landscape maps. The first one is here we see the red cluster is spatial, the green one is racial, and the blue is gender. And if we look at this other map, this is a temporal overlay of the other one, and we see what is very interesting is that the cluster of spatial segregation is the most recent investigated one. And that was very interesting for us because we were trying to grasp this double dimension. So here we see a graphic of the indices and indicators we considered in our analysis, and in particular we are going to see just 2 of urban social segregation. Here we see some description coming from literature. In particular, we are going to see spatial dissimilarity index and spatial exposure index. Here we see our case study in Naples. There is Lotto in the district of Ponticelli in the eastern periphery of Naples. Lotto O was built after a social housing planning policy after the 1980 earthquake, and was built to give a new home for people that were displaced from the earthquake. Here we see some photos of the Lotto O. And here we see some results. In particular, here we see a map of the municipality of Naples, which is showing us the kernel density estimator we use to process the 2 indices I'm going to show you. The first one is local spatial dissimilarity index, and we process that using hard data according to the number of people with no income. And this map is showing us clusters of people with no income. That is to say, how much segregated the social group is on the territory. And we see in particular a zoom in our case study. Then we see here the other index we process. There is local spatial exposure index. In particular, here we used data according to the numbers of people with income and with no income. This index is very interesting because this tells us something about the potential contact between the 2 social groups of population. And we see that all the districts at the periphery of Naples have a very high value of this index. And also we see, or we could interpret this map saying that the inner districts of Naples have this index very low. That is to say, these are the most gentrified ones. These are the districts where this potential contact is very low. That is to say that there are not so many people with no income. So to conclude, we are trying to grasp the multidimensionality and complexity of this phenomenon, segregation. And we are trying to connect that with the impacts that social housing and planning policies have had during these last decades on the territory. In particular, we are investigating Lotto O or Zero, and that is our case study. But we also have further expected results. We are trying to involve stakeholders in our space knowledge building process, because we also want to investigate the issues of informal publicness and resilience, and we want to connect that with the issue of segregation. In particular, we are going to use an assessment approach based on an integrated spatial assessment and a spatial multi-criteria analysis. So here we see some references where we could find some of these spatial segregation indices. So thank you.
Thank you, Maria, also for being perfectly in time. I would like to accept at least one question if there is any.
I have a question. Can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
This is Paracadute. I'm just asking if how to manage many multi-spatial dimension. I mean, there are a relationship between part of city, and also big area involved and interested in using all university and cultural services. Did you find some original, something that is interesting to study more in deep? Thanks.
So yes,
Maria?
yes, sorry. That's a bit delay. Yes, so we saw that by processing hard data about social and economic dynamics and using these indicators or indices, we see a new pattern of the city through the lenses of segregations. And we see that we could analyze, for example, gentrification processes within the city connected to residential districts, but we also could analyze that what actually interests us, the phenomenon of all the social housing policies that affects in particular the periphery of the city, and yeah, that's what we are trying to grasp from this analysis.
Okay, thanks. Good luck.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, and keep in touch, and see you around during this virtual conference. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye. Thank you for your assistance.
Everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye all.
Goodbye. Ciao, Lucia.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Liliana.
I know you.
Liliana, please turn on your microphone.
Yes. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi.
So,
Okay.
do we need to check if all presenters are here with us? There should be at least.
Jakub Misak, hello.
Ah, that's you. Okay, hello. Just to see, we need Roberto Dell'Otto or Caterina Pietro, someone for territorial attraction for new industrial productive plants. Avia? No?
Yeah, we are here, but we are just waiting for Roberto actually because he's gonna present the contribution.
Okay, yeah.
I think he's trying to connect. Just
Francesca Salvo. Someone for the second paper? Letizia?
Yes, I'm here, but wait.
Okay.
Show me. Okay, but I'm waiting my colleague Irene.
Okay. Anyway, we need to Roberto Dell'Otto. Ah, there is someone. Okay, let's see. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
Yeah, Roberto.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Is that Roberto?
Yes, yeah. I'm here. I had a problem with my PC, so sorry, I'm late.
Oh no, it's just fine. Just to know that we have the speakers for the first 4 papers. But I think now we are. Francesca Salvo is here. Francesca. No. Okay, anyway, let's start because I mean, what's happened now? Okay. Anyway, okay, I think we should start, and then I think the rest of the presenters are going to join you. Good afternoon to everybody. I hope you enjoyed the sessions and presentations up till now during the ICCSA conference, and I would like you to welcome to the workshop Cities, Technologies and Planning 2020, and this year it's online, like the whole conference in general. And this time, because since we have the methodology of the presentation, as you know, is the 8+2 minutes. You know, we have overall received 6 presentations, so we have practically 2 sessions. After this session, we will have another session. So as I said, for the first session, we have 4 papers. And maybe I should also, before we continue, introduce myself. My name is Ljiljana Živković. I'm spatial and urban planner from Serbia, Belgrade. I'm working for the government, for the Ministry of Construction, Transport and Infrastructure, and also our research associate of the Institute of Architecture, Urban and Spatial Planning of Serbia. So I'll join you during both the sessions, of course, with my co-chairs Beniamino Morgante, Malgorzata Hansel, and Giuseppe Borusso. And I propose, since we are very limited with time, to start with the first presentation. This is it's going to present Roberto Dell'Otto, Territorial Attraction for New Industrial Productive Plants, the case of Pavia province. Please, the floor is yours, Roberto.
Yeah, I am trying to share the screen. Is it okay? Can you hear this?
Yes,
can
we could see. Yes,
see
we
this?
could see it.
Okay,
yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So, well, first of all, thank you very much. Thank you, Liliana, for your presentation. Thank you to the friends Beniamino and all the people who participated. Sorry, I don't remember the comprehensive list, but it is not the first time I am here in this CTP conference. I don't want to lose time in anything else, but saying that it is really an honor to be here again. I've been physically to this conference several times, and it is quite strange. I already finished a meeting with the municipality I work with, that is near Milan, and now in the same room I am in an international conference, so this is very interesting issues. We will discuss about this paper that is involved as author myself, the Professor Elisabetta Maria Venco and the PhD candidate Caterina Pietra. We work together in the Urban Project Laboratory of the Department of Civil Engineering and Architecture of the University of Pavia. Pavia is located 50 kilometers south from Milan. The key point is try to analyze and imagine in which way we can manage the territorial attraction for a specific issue that is the industrial sector. And the basic fact that we will like to present in this paper is the methodology to build the system or a knowledge-based support system. The definitions are sometimes interacting each other. So the name is, I mean, less important than content of this. Hence, use help decision make in the event of. In this case, we discuss the possibility to define geographically issues, some quantity can be able look if some batteries are more competitive. We use to use this term very considering that we have some kind of rules that are basically the rules of the market. So something that we, sorry, I come back, we defined as what, where, and where what. So it is the question for some stakeholders that I have an activity and I look for a place, or for the municipality, an example, or province or region. We have a lot of place. We would like to know what to put inside. So this kind of market law in the territory can be simplified in this double couple of words. The issue is developed throughout a lot of aspects. I go a little fast in these three main steps in order to go to one of the key points I would like to underline. And the first one is the methodology we used. And the aspect regarding the production issues is that some aspects of the territory, some territorial characteristics are working together with the attraction of the territory. Some other works against, and I explain better. So we have some aspects such as the infrastructure presence that is going toward the attraction and the competition of the territory. We have some other aspects such as the environmental quality or the presence of high quality environmental elements that are good in general for the territory, but not so good for the production sector, because the productive sector causes an impact on this. So the consequences could be worse in the general meaning. So the point we wanted to face was how to describe this kind of dichotomy in some sense, trying to underline the possible efficiency of the territory. Pavia province is the one that you see inside the red line. It is 50 kilometers from Milan, and it has a quite recognizable linear settlement between Voghera and Broni, that is in the highway Piacenza, Alessandria, Turin, and Bologna in the east side. And the issue was then highlighted in some elements, such as, in example, in Pavia, and we wanted to underline which were the possible positive buffers and which were the possible negative elements, even if they are considered positive in a general sense for the territory. of course, aiming to define the attractivity and the competitivity of the Pavia system. So we worked basically with a map overlay, and we defined some buffers, considering that we can measure this buffer with a multi-criteria method. So every province, in example, or every municipality can use different weights for each of the parameters that were listed before in order to define the capacity of the territory to attract and the characteristics that may be in opposition of these possible functions. So using mainly a pairwise comparison and a multi-criteria analysis, we are able to define these buffers or array of attractions, of infrastructures, of availability of area, and also of punctual or more diffuse environmental elements. So the issue was to work in a map overlay, so with the geographic translation of these characteristics that not always are only geographical. So one of the key points that stays behind the scheme is to define what is really representable as a geographic problem and what is not in this sense. In example, the landscape value, it is something that is difficult to be defined at the territorial level when we discuss about new settlements of industrial area. We are seeing some parts of the province of Pavia we analyzed with different levels, with different layers and different opportunities and threats that we defined in order to analyze a sort of priority of decision that maybe the province of Pavia could take in order to improve and or to decide where it is better to start a kind of renovation of the industrial sector. We worked together with the industry association of the province of Pavia, and we analyzed with different colors. In this sense, you can see the optimal location, the good location, or the moderate location, or not ideal location, with the hypothesis that we made, and I'm finished, to reuse the ex-industrial area, so to have a contribution in the regeneration of the province using already dismissed land, so already used territory. Thank you for your attention. I try to be as fast as possible, and I wait for your questions.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was quite, explanatory, because we did a lot of this graphical geovisualization, the maps and everything. Would anybody like to make some question, some additional information about this study?
Liliana, I can add that all the pictures you have seen are in the paper, so you can take a look. You can take a look with more details in the paper. What was the key point? It was the fact that we have some positive and negative effects that interact with the attraction and competition of territory. So the question is, do we agree in this or not, as a general aspect?
Okay, I would just like to make one question, a short one, in sense, that I was also was working on some project related to the attraction, and territorial attraction. In general, what was the intention? Because I think that you want to brownfield the locations to also include in the offer for the investments and to the new production. But are you targeting some specialization of the province of Pavia, or you are just going to diversify the existing economy?
No. We are working together with. Okay.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Okay. And I was trying to answer. We are working strictly with the Association of Industrial and Productive Sector of the province of Pavia. So the first issue is using the brownfields for two reasons. The first one is that a lot of brownfields are dismissed at least since 25, 30 years. So there is a necessity to work with this dismissed area. But the main obstacle is the soil renovation. And because in Italy we have very strict laws to reuse this land for residential or public services, industry has lower level of requested quality of soil. That is why a lot of industries, maybe not high impact industries or high impact activities, would like to invest in this area because they can be ready to work without spending too much money in the renaturalization of the soil.
Okay, thank you very much, Roberto.
You're more than welcome.
We have to run to the second presentation. This is a quantitative approach in the ecclesiastical heritage appraisal. I apologize, Francesca Salvo, please. Francesca. Is Francesca with us, or someone else is going to present? Okay, Francesca, is there anyone else for the present? Yes. Okay, we'll then go to the next presentation. Assessment of quality of life in residential estates in lodge. And I saw already Jakub Misiak, to present this paper for us. Jakub, could you please take the floor?
Okay, let's get started. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, you could see it, please.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jakub Misiak. For those who don't know me already, I'm a PhD student at Lodz University of Technology in Poland. Today I'm going to talk about assessment of quality of life in residential estates in Lodz. This article and presentation wouldn't have been possible without the help and support of my supervisor, Małgorzata Hans, and a friend of mine, Karolina Grela, also Małgorzatas graduate. First of all, I'd like to outline the main points of my talk. So I will start off by making a few observations about the need for urban planning monitoring and rational decision-making based on knowledge. Then I will go on to aims, scope, and research background. I will present the methodology for quality of life assessment. Finally, I'm going to present conclusions and plans for future research. Quality of life is a principal concern of contemporary urban planning. The basic message I'm trying to get across here is simple. We need a proper evaluation framework which would enable planners to make the appropriate decisions and transform the human living environment in right direction. You have to think of spatial inequalities, sustainability, climate changes, etc., etc. I'm going to show you a consolidated system of indicators for measuring quality of life in spatial context. You have to know that's the first step towards more advanced research. We used 3 housing estates. You can see them on the left. In Lodz, Poland, as case studies, which we assessed looking for recommendations for future planning. Similar characteristics enabled us to comparative analysis. We tried to answer the questions how people live in selected housing estates and how to improve them using urban planning tools. Scope of work is connected with writing Carolina Grella's master thesis. If you could take a look at these charts, we conducted a kind of exploratory bibliometric analysis of the Scopus database. It confirms that the topic of quality of life has been extensively researched in several fields. The most popular are public health, but also social and environmental sciences. At the same time, urban research on the right, connected with quality of life, observes much less intensive development. We can see 100 times fewer publications about quality of life in urban context. However, trends are growing too. That's why we decided to contribute to the development of the topics. In the current research, we have reviewed several international assessment schemes used for urban benchmarking, looking for methods which might indicate how to improve the quality of life. The most recognized are the following ones, like Mercer, Monocle Quality of Life Surveys, Urban Audit, etc. Specific measures require established standards in order to become accepted and useful. That's why we also analyzed indicators for smart and resilient cities in ISO norms. Yeah. The official rankings use many indicators to define the quality of life in cities. The approaches are different because of different understanding of the topic, the concept of quality of life, but they measure the same phenomena in reality. Having reviewed some methods to assess quality of life, we selected a comprehensive set of indicators for investigation. We have divided them into groups such as security, social, technical infrastructure, mobility, sport, recreation, environment, climate change, and urban planning. Each of these areas gets a set of indicators. Most of them followed standards. Sometimes there was need to transform them into conditions of analyzed housing estates. We can classify indicators into leading ones, which use objective values. These are quantitative indicators based on formal features of physical structures, and sentiment indicators, qualitative ones based on resident subjective perception. We have compiled the assessment and obtained results which enabled the overall evaluation. In the table, we can see all the collected data and the results of our assessment. We can see full names of our indicators like availability of services and their diversity collected from walkscore.com, length of bicycle paths in kilometers per 1,000 inhabitants, and similar. It's impossible to present all of it. You can take a look at it in my presentation later. We used AutoCAD and Quantum GIS to map and measure all the elements and indicators. Main sources of our data included direct measurement of physical structures and, of course, social research, but also internet sites of local governments, statistical sites, etc. As I said a moment before, we examined citizens' opinions using a questionnaire. Our results are exploratory, as we surveyed just 30 respondents per residential area. Our questions referred to the impact of single features. The most important thing is that each indicator received its weight to show a more objective picture of housing estate. It reflects the current values and norms which refer to the quality of life of residents. On the chart, we can see citizens' attitudes towards the indicators, or more precisely, themes in which our indicators were divided in the study. The weights were collected through the social survey and examined inhabitants appreciate most security, sport and recreation possibilities. When it comes to our assessment results, the chart on the left presents objective assessment results in percentage units. We normalized every parameter using the maximum for a given index. And on the right, we can see the accurate results, including collected weights. The complexity of urban issues makes the kind of simplification inherent part of indicators system. We observed that the existing evaluation schemes address the quality of physical environment, and the main conclusion we've come to is that our space and cities need informed decisions which take into account the well-being of inhabitants and the quality of life. GIS and parametric tools can provide technical input to measuring the quality of life in spatial context and improve accuracy in decision making. Of course, more direct linking of parameters to measure, analyze, and what could be the most important, understand the processes and changes of human and natural environment is needed. We also need to compare the big spatial data on city functioning after collecting it. With this more public participation GIS-based survey could be useful in such practices. The possibilities of assessing quality of life in spatial context seem to be worth attention and taking into account while thinking of sustainable cities, of our future resilience, climate changes, it was really great to see all of you this afternoon in this specific situation, and thank you for attention.
Okay. Thank you very much for your presentation. You wanted to say that it's like thank you for in this new normal, as everybody is saying during the yesterday presentations, and today it's a completely new also experience for us to have this conference online. Thank you very much for the presentation. Is there some question or additional interest, to ask? Raise your hands or something. No? I don't know. I could just make maybe even the comment, because this local information monitoring system are quite rare, and now they are really there is a highlight on them, due to the very general nature of this monitoring system on the national and macro regional level. So my question would be, how you plan to involve, since you've done some survey of the citizens in those blocks, how do you plan to involve them in sense to inform them about these results? Because it's always better to have stakeholders interested and involved, so then they have this ownership and they are practically trying to make their neighborhood even better. And also, if you could make some further maybe comment about the GIS, because it's opening so many functionalities, like combining with some other data or something like that. What do you expect when you say that you are going probably to put it further and then to use the GIS functionalities?
Okay, thank you. What I would like to add, I'm professionally associated with Municipal Planning Office of Lodz in central Poland. I prepare master plans for Lodz, and I find it really useful collecting all the data and using it in preparing plans and concepts for the city. There is a lack of such spatial data. That's why I find it really useful to practice it, and yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Good luck with the continuation of your project. And
That's the beginning of my studies.
Yes, the
Yeah,
beginning,
thank you
and
so
then
much.
we expect the next year to hear what you have done in the meantime, you know, how you improved in the project. Thank you very much again.
Thanks.
So I would just like to ask again if the Francesca or Manuela or Danielo, is there anyone for the second paper, the second presentations here with us? Okay, if not, I would like to ask Letizia Bolini to present her article, The Situation and Motions, the Role of the Soundscape in a Geo-Based Multimodal Application in the Field of Cultural Heritage. Please, Letizia, take the floor.
Okay. Okay. I hope you see the presentation. Let me know because
yes, could see it.
Okay. So thank you, Juan, for having us here. I'm Letizia Bolini. I'm an associate professor of interaction and transmedia design at the Free University of Posen Bolzano, and with me today there is the co-author of this research, Irene Della Fazia, a practitioner and a designer with a background in digital communication and design. And the presentation is about the paper Situated Emotion. It is a project about the introduction of the sound dimension, the soundscape in a mobile application with geo-based data in the field of cultural and intangible heritage. And we suggest you to use your mobile phone and your earphone, if you have, to properly listen to the sounds linked to the QR code in the presentation. Otherwise, you are not able to perceive the sound effect properly. Okay. So the starting point of the research was to move from the typical cognitive model of mobile, graphical, and touch user interfaces, and from the abstract language of 2D representation of physical space, and to move to a more rich and playful interaction for users. That means to experiment a little bit in the field of the so-called visceral level of interaction, according to Donald Norman emotional design definition. And that means to address the richness of our senses and our physicality. So, mapping the state of the art in the first phase of the study, a promising concept emerged, introduced by Whitelaw in 2015. That means generous interfaces, a way to better connect contents to people, making, so to say, the relationship between contents and contents visible to users. Generous interfaces are evocative, diverse, and immediate by definition, and nevertheless, they mainly offers a visual access to a two-dimensional visualization of information. So, exploring the research background and studies about the relationship about space and sound, we introduced the experimental project brought out specifically by Southworth in the late 70s about the connection and so to say the perception of city through its sounds and noises, and a concept of uniqueness and singularity emerge from this study in identifying specific places of a city. And this uniqueness was labeled later by Schaeffer as sound marks, a sort of unique sound landmark from a specific area or place. So, sorry. The main issue was how to reproduce this soundscape and the richness of sound in a spatial experience. And in this sense, the way to recreate this feeling and this experience was given by the work conducted by the musicians and artists Ugo Zuccarelli and Umberto Maggi. That means holophony, a three-dimensional sound information system, a way to reproduct sound, physical sound information. And from on the other hand, the binaural recording technique is the method to design and reproduce and to record this kind of three-dimensional sound effect. For those who were teenagers in the 80s, probably you remember the Pink Floyd Final Cut album. This was the first time when this holophony effect was used and implemented. According to this concept of soundscape, the project hypothesis was to explore specific sound marks of a place, in this case, the city of Milan, and their evolution through times, to centuries, as a way to read the urban transformation and to tell its story. Thresholds selected according to a previous project presented at ICCSA 2017. They were selected according to the one of the most famous Italian novel, that means The Betrothed, written by the novelist Alessandro Manzoni. So the three historical thresholds are the 17th century, when the city of Milan was still contained, so to say, inside the walls, the Spanish wall. The 19th century, Manzoni died in 1873, when the city start evolving and to expand outside the walls, including the Corpi Santi and other outside municipalities, and the contemporary city that has been hugely transformed during and after the Expo event held in 2015, when many of ongoing and new projects deeply transform the skyline and the social structure of many city districts, such as Zona Garibaldi, Isola, Fiera, and so on. So, in this case, starting from the previous prototype of the time machine, the one on the layout of the interface on the left, the challenge was to, in this case, to design for ears, so including or adopting the acoustical channel to let people explore and interact with the space. So now my colleague will introduce the project, and for those who have, I suggest to use the QR code and earphones to fully experience this sound component. Please, Irene. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Irene, are you there?
Yes, we could hear you. I'm sorry, I was switching between the headphones and the.
Sorry.
Yeah, I was switching. Yes, we could hear you. I mean, this was okay. Please continue. Take the time. We have some more time, so please continue.
No.
Please. No.
I mean, if you can hear the sound.
I heard some sound, but you know, this is what I was just wanted to ask you if this is you are playing, because here we have the 17th century, the 19th, and the 21st century. So you were playing which one? I assume the first one, or
No, I probably I don't know if you are hearing the sound, so to say, or not. Otherwise, you can use the QR code to listen.
Okay.
Because we are not sure that you can hear that properly.
Yeah, let's hear the rest of the audience. I don't know if.
Okay. Yeah. You can use the QR code in the presentation.
Yeah. Okay.
To properly listen with earphones all the level.
Yeah.
I hope we
could continue. Yeah, we could also. Everybody could go again to the right.
Anyway, I can go. Okay.
Letizia, do you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, I can. Sorry. So I move on. I don't know if you can hear us or not. Nevertheless, I can explain also her part. So in this picture and in this slide, you can see and you can, thanks to QR codes, the sound recorded for each threshold and see how much also the images of the city are changed in between. We tested with users this so to say hypothesis about soundscape. We conducted a first-phase user test session, including 15 participants, age 23-65, students, tourists, and literature teachers who are, so to say, specialists in the field according to the novel metaphor. And we use the methodology, we adopt the methodology about average usability developed by Roberto Polillo, professor at the University of Milano Bicocca. And the final results were that almost the average usability, so to say, of the sound path was 97.7%. So a very good result. Nevertheless, our interest was to understand, thanks to a qualitative research, that means interviews, final interviews, to measure, so to say, satisfaction and to have such insights about the experience. We were almost interested in the reaction and in the experience made by the users. So when the subjects were asked what emotions, sensations, feelings that they felt in listening to these audios belonging, in this case, to the Lazaretto Hospital during the plague, each one unconsciously went from, so to say, more emotional and abstract level on the left, fear, anxiety, suffering, terror, and discomfort, when listening to sounds and sound marks today far away in time, moving from a more concrete situation when listening to more familiar sounds, such as the ones of the 19th century. That means shop noises, train whistles in the distance, bell tower, whatever, and currently, so to say, urban sounds. So this was the most interesting part of the research results. We want to explore a little bit more and to go a little bit deeper. And so people are more comfortable and less connected with the experience that they do during their current and daily life, rather than the ones not so familiar and not present the previous experience. So conclusion, although they are not really conclusion, but we think that including to generous interfaces other modalities of communication could be a way in improving the overall immediateness, that means transparency of these interfaces, adding much more connection and engagement to the users. On the other hand, the visual level of interaction played really a huge role in connecting people to the spatial context, activating them emotionally. And what we notice as a sort of, so to say, a side effect of this research, and we want to go through this aspect a little bit further, is that this soundscape can also improve a lot the accessibility of spatial experiences mediated by digital devices or mobile devices. So soundscape gives more different tools to explore, for instance, to people who are blind or have other problem in interacting with standard technologies. And just to remind that, for instance, the study brought out by Southward was involved also a group of blind people in experimenting the sound and space relationship. And finally, then now we are planning to develop the application more and to record also the other soundscape and sound marks of other urban point of interest of the application, and test them again to have a wider perspective on this design approach.
Okay, thank you very much. This was, Letizia, this was very interesting. I'm sure also for the rest of the participants. Is there some, I mean, I don't have so much, the experience with this type of the work and the soundscape, but was quite innovative, and it's very, contributing to diversity of the presentations for this workshop. Is there any question, please? Okay, here is Małgorzata has a question. Please.
Hello. I have to unmute myself.
Małgorzata.
Yeah, it should improve already. So basically, my question refers to the opposite of, let's say, pleasant sounds, specifically to noise. So what is the relationship? Because we have got a lot of conflicts referring to exactly the noise pollution and whether your research is going to take into account the noise levels and in general, what are the perceptions and valuations of sounds? They are not just positive, they might be also perceived as something wrong.
Okay, the concept of urban noises and noise pollution in city environment was partially considered according to another project developed a couple of years ago. We mentioned the title of the project later on. Nevertheless, the point was more about because you should your earphones, and so in a way you exclude the outside world when experiencing this kind of soundscape. Is a way to have not only elements that suggest you how the city or how that specific place was previously, but having another kind or using another channel communication to let you feel this huge difference and the evolution of the places. Going back to this picture, you can see, for instance, that originally the place of the Lazaretto outside the Porta Venezia in Milan was isolated hospital, and nowadays is just part of the urban urban structure, urban texture. So the aim is to find a way to reach, to communicate in a richer way the experience of the place rather than confronting the actual city and his, so to say, problems. White noise was the name of the previous project. White noise was an application aimed to measure and visually express the noise of places, means traffic, to connect it to the emotion of people experiencing, physically experiencing these disturbing noises.
Okay, we have another person wants to speak. Sabri, please.
Okay, thank you very much. My question would be about how could we put this study about sounds and emotions to good use in planning? Is that possible to use it to improve a person's experience of the city, or is just that a descriptive study?
At the end, it was more a way to tell the story of the city. That means to work on cultural heritage issues, introducing another level of experience. Nevertheless, I think that facing also other elements of other elements of experience in that we I don't know how to explain. So I mean, planning or transforming a urban place. I mean, also this element, not just planimetry and three-dimensional structure of the buildings and of the surroundings, impact on the experience that people will do of these places. Traffic noise, noise from surroundings, and so on are really part of planning and designing the urban environment. And I know that coming from I'm an architect, so coming from the culture of design and urban planning, we sometimes miss other aspects of people experience.
Yeah, thank you.
We are using.
Sabrina, would you like to add something else, or yeah?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, but I mean, I saw this type. I mean, okay, we are thinking now about the application of this, because it's like usually it's a professional deformation. It's so assume that this could be position, so it's not going to be kind of installation or something like that, or maybe this it's going to be somewhere on the street, on the Venice or somewhere. Where do you make this soundscape, and then the tourist or someone who wants to have experience of this city in that specific time could hear the noises and have this let's say experience of the, if I'm right?
This is part of the application. If you see in this slide, the application allows you to interact with the space different ways, and sound is one added in this new in this review of the previous app. So, for instance, when you arrive in a point of interest in a place, you can explore it using a different the previous project, the time machine, allows you to explore historical maps. So you can, in a place, you can see Google map, but you can see also the Cartaro map or the Artaria map. That means maps of other centuries overlaid on the actual structure of the city. The soundscape will introduce in the application this kind of approach to spatial exploration.
Okay, thank you very much. Quite interesting. Look forward to. So I would like to thank everybody for the very nice and successful presentations, very interesting. And I invite all of you to stay for our second part of the second session of the workshop. And also just for the first 3 presenters, or unfortunately, Francesca couldn't join us. I hope that all of you are going to write the paper the next year, and that we would have a chance to meet you face to face wherever the next ICCSA conference would be organized. Thank you very much. And now I'll give you the floor to my colleague Małgorzata Hanzbo. Please.
Okay, it's my pleasure to welcome you to the next part of this session, and especially to the first presentation by Liliana Żywkowicz. So don't leave us, please. And I would follow the example. I'd like to introduce myself, even if Jakub has already done that. I teach in Lodz University of Technology. I also teach in Warsaw University of Technology a little bit. And I am also involved in ISOCARP, which is International Society of City and Regional Planners, and quite a lot. And I am regular to this conference. That's why, thank you, Beniamino, for this opportunity to chair this session. So first I'd like to check whether everybody is here. So Liliana is there, and Gabriela Massetti, or any other. Are you here? Yeah, okay, great. I'm happy. and Alessandro Capodici.
No, I'm Gabriele D'Orso. I'm here, the third presenter.
Oh, great. I'm happy to see you because in this riot, I think your presentation was missing for quite a long time. So I was not sure. So great. We have got. I'm happy. We have got 3 presenters, so I won't talk any longer. I'm giving floor to Liliana. Please kindly share your screen and tell us this story.
Okay. Do you see the screen?
Not yet.
Just a second. Okay. Now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyway, I'm going to present myself. You know, my name is Ljiljana Živković. I'm spatial and urban planner from Belgrade, and my presentation would deal with and would present the first results of the project that is going to make such an instrument that is going to involve to change the land use management model in Serbia, but also the urban planning and urban management model in general. So in short, I'm going to present and to say something about the current status of urban development and land management in Serbia. Then I would say something in general about the territorial development monitoring in Europe and the monitoring system that are developed up till now. Then I'm going to say something about the project that is kind of the topic of my presentation in general, and then something short about discussion to discuss the results and to make the conclusion. On the beginning, I would say that the biggest problem in Belgrade, if we talk in Serbia, if we talk about the urban development, is the mismatch between the market-based economy model and the land management model in general. This mismatch happened due to the long post-socialist transition and delayed land reforms in general. This delaying produced an inefficient land management system, and practically, I said here, ineffective land policy, but practically this land policy doesn't exist, to be honest. All of this contributed to the poor local economic development, so the recent World Bank study concluded that in Serbia there is a stale urbanization process, and we are not reaping these economic benefits that would be possible now and of course in the future. Therefore, in order for these two models to match and to gridlock, there is a need for some market-based instruments for the urban land management to be involved, like investments. And for this type of the new instruments, of course, there is a need for the new model of urban planning and urban land management. This would, of course, due to the such a dynamics in the space and the new models and the implementation of any innovation, would need some monitoring system that would be used also for these new market-based instruments, but also in general for the urban planning in the future. About this monitoring system, they are, quite for some time in Europe, since introduction of European Spatial Development Perspective Act and the launching of the ESPON program that should be monitoring the goals of this previous document I mentioned. There are a number of and great variety of monitoring systems in Europe were developed up till now, and they are still developing. Most of these monitoring systems are, on the national level or the macro-regional level. But recently there was a kind of the stress and the needs, especially needs for this monitoring system on the sub-regional or the local level, depending on the European country we are talking about. So this kind of weeping for this type of the system is due to the couple of factors. One of them is urbanization process management, in general in the Europe. Also, there is a decreasing the constantly decreasing the public funds on the local level and within the municipalities. So there is a need for some innovative approaches to protect the public interest, but also to establish and to increase the quality of life of citizens. Also, there is a need for the urban plans finally to be implemented. You know, they have this corrective role that is quite important, but usually when they are made, there is no some efficient way to implement them and to follow up, you know, if all solutions within those plans are really implemented locally. And the fourth, but not the least, the factor for this focus on the local level monitoring system development is due to the need of implementing sustainability objectives, you know, on the local level, on the urban development domain, and this is actually needs for these sustainability principles to be implemented on the level of the land management, particularly. So in order, you know, also as I said at the beginning, for this monitoring system on the local level in Serbia to be implemented, but moreover for the new market-based instruments for the urban development and the land management to be implemented, the Serbian government, I mean the ministry where I work, together with the RGA, started the project with the Swedish partners Lantmäteriet and SIDA. So this project, named Improvement of Investment Environment in Serbia, it started the last year and duration is up till the next year. But, you know, during all this situation about the coronavirus is a little bit, you know, lagging and a little bit slower down. So the aim of this project, as I said, is to practically overall to support sustainable local economic development by establishing the new register with the digital register of the so-called National Register of Investment Location and related monitoring system that should support this investment's realization, but also in general decision-making on the local level. Indirectly, this monitoring system would support, you know, this change, as I said, within the urban planning, you know, domain, and also with to support the sustainable urban land use management in general. For this aim to be reached, you know, we identify the three objectives. First is to develop this technical solution, you know, to develop the solution for this new digital strategic register. The second one deals with the collecting of the data for the investment locations data. To collect the data for the investment locations, and the third is to build the capacity of all stakeholders, you know, to deal with this issue and to maintain and to make this solution that we are going to build sustainable even when the project ends. For this end, the methodology consisted of 5 components to be how to say implemented during the project duration. First one is to develop the data model for the investment location, and in this way to implement this new register. Then there is a need for the free web-based applications. First one to collect the data. The second one, you know, to establish the direct communication between the investor and local self-governments, and in this way to give them the new strategic role. For the further web-based application is for the project visibility, and the fifth component is relating to the capacity building, as I already mentioned. What is interesting for this methodology that it relies already on the solution that is built for the national spatial data infrastructure for the Serbia, and it's a geoportal, you know, the GeoSerbia. So practically it's going to reap the benefits and functionalities of these two solutions that are already there. So in this phase, I could only present the first results of this project. First of all, we managed to build a conceptual model for the common conceptual model for the investment location domain, and in this way this is going to support this new register implementation. As I already said, you know, now maybe it's not visible, but it's visible in the article. There is, you know, of course some other, this new register is going to rely on some other already built strategic registers that are already on the NSDI geoportal GeoSerbia. The second result is the data that are already collected for the pilot investment locations, and they are tested in the environment of geoportal. Of course, here we mostly tested, geovisualization functionalities, combining with some other the layers of the data, and made some first queries, to just to test, how this is going to function. And the third results is relates to the first capacity building event for these local governments in Serbia that are selected for this project. Overall, this up till now, it's obvious, that this new register and the related monitoring system with the technological advantages is going to have the benefits for the investors, because they are going to be in position to better analyze the investment location potential, and later on to follow up, how the investment is realizing. The second, that the local self-governments would maybe better understand what is the investor needs, and they could even make simulation how each investment is going to impact the neighboring parcels and neighboring functions, and how it's going to change maybe the urban land use patterns. And the third, the third point is that it's going to start the learning process that is needed for this new land management system and the land use planning and management model. And of course, this is the first step to make one effective the land policy in Serbia. And the fourth, this is the finally maybe situation that we are going to make the urban plans and to really put them into the force and to implement them in sense that they are going to control how this valuable resource is used and to reap the benefits for all from that. As a conclusion, I could only say that for the time being, it's obvious, and we hope that, we need this system, we need this new register, and we need this new system in order to make conditions for the investments to be increased in the local, in the urban development, and to start this new wave of the urban renewable projects. Also, we hope, and I think it's obvious, that it's going to start the development of establishment of urban planning monitoring system, and it's going to move this model of urban land use management from command and control and to learn and adapt. And finally, we hope that it's going to support and to give some new wind to the back of the digitalization process within the territorial development domain in Serbia. With this conclusion, I'm going to thank you for your attention, and if there is some questions, I would be really happy to answer them.
Well, so thank you, Liliana, for this presentation. It was really very well prepared and very comprehensive. I'd like to congratulate you, because as far as I understand, this is the newest project in which you took like a major part. So I imagine that there are reasons to do that. So are there any questions? This is my question. Please. Well, I've got one actually. How do you plan? What would happen with the outcomes of this project? What about the integration with the geoportal? Because I just wonder.
This, okay, the integration is quite well. I mean, this is RGA is the institution that is in Serbia. It's how to say, responsible for the real estate cadastre. So practically, maybe this is the right, let's say, house, institution to start when you speak about the spatial data, to make them and to put them into the action. What only I think, if I may, discuss myself, the results and this project is that at the moment, maybe this is okay, maybe this is even better. It's not really, how to say, established in the law. Usually here, at least in this more, let's say, maybe post-socialist country, we are putting first the law and then we are going to work on the solution. We never, how to say, first learn lesson and then put the best practice into the legislation. But this time I think it's opposite. So I think this is a good. Also, what for me it was kind of. No, I can't say the strange or something like that. But it's really, we started this project, from the back somehow, from the introducing the new the economic, you know, the market-based instruments, you know, to something that is quite you know, strategic, and this is to have the database with the spatial plans, you know, and then to establish the monitoring system, and after that maybe it would be logical, you know, to have this. But maybe also this approach is not so bad, because, you know, I think we all reaping, you know, and there is a need for the investments in order for the development to start, and maybe this is going to show up on the end as the best way to do this.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really right. Thank you once again. I'd like to welcome the next presenter. Are you there and prepared?
I'm here.
Yeah, so please kindly share your screen and feel welcome.
Can you see presentation?
Yes, and feel welcome, Gabriela.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Gabriela Maselli, a PhD student of the Department of Civil Engineering of the University of Salerno, and my today presentation concerns a research about the estimation of risk levels for building construction projects. This research was born from an idea of the project evaluation laboratory with the aim of defining an innovative model of risk analysis that allow which make it possible to estimate investment risk thresholds. In this slide, I show a summary of the main step of the today presentation. After a brief introduction, I briefly describe the state of art necessary to define the methodology and in particular the model to estimate the acceptance risk threshold. Based on the implementation of this model is related to the estimation of limit risk threshold for building construction sector in Italy, and finally with the work and to provide learning and teaching in hyperspatial imagery.
Sorry, Natalia, just check. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Please move on. I'll be the next one to present. I think I'll manage to use this new device. Thank you.
Okay.
And apologize. Sorry.
Great. Thank you. So please, Eduardo, can you see the presentation?
I'm sorry, not at the moment. It disappeared, and when you share the screen, please kindly close this rescued documents. It would make this image larger.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Sorry. In this slide, I summarize the main step of today's presentation: the introduction, the state of art, the definition of the model to estimate the acceptance risk threshold, the application of the model in order to estimate the limit risk threshold for building construction sector in Italy, and finally, I show main conclusive remarks and policy implications. The ex-ante assessment of risks of plans, program, and project is an essential part of decision making. In particular, when it is not possible to express with certainty prediction on the critical variables of the project, it becomes necessary to take into account the investment risk, evaluating the economic performance indicator in stochastic terms. In particular, the European landscape recognizes the centrality that risk analysis must have in economic evaluation of a project. However, the regulatory guidelines do not provide any indication of the levels of acceptability of the investment risk. In order to overcome this limit, this research has two main aims. The first aim is to establish shared and objective criteria to assess the acceptability of the risk, and the second one concerns the characterization, the definition of a methodology for estimating acceptance limit values. In accordance with the European Commission, three are the main steps of the risk analysis implemented using approaches such as Monte Carlo analysis. The first one is the identification of the sensitive variables of the system. The second concerns the stochastic description of the sensitive variables, and the third step concerns the estimation of the probability distribution of profitability indicators. The main criticality of this approach concerns the absence of objective criteria to establish if the investment risk and the residual risk are acceptable for the investor. So with this study, we intended to propose an innovative model for the economic evaluation of project plans and programs, which allows to express a judgment on the acceptability of investment risk. With this model, this research, we want to answer two main questions. The first is, how do we establish the risk acceptance criteria? And the second one is the following: how do we estimate the risk acceptance threshold defined in point 1? For the first question, the reference, and in particular the novelty, concern the use of the as low as reasonably practicable logic in the.
Excuse me, Gabriela. Excuse me. May I please kindly ask other participants to not share their screen in the meantime, because it really makes the reception very difficult. I see that somebody is constantly trying to share the screen. Please stop. Apologies. The field is yours back, please.
Okay.
So Gabriela, it's to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Apologies. Yeah.
Okay. For this question, the novelty concerns the introduction, the use of as low as reasonably practicable logic in the procedural scheme of cost-benefit analysis. According to this logic, a risk is tolerable when the cost to reduce it further are disproportionate to the benefit can be pursued. In the hierarchy field, the risk assessment is related to two limited thresholds: tolerability threshold and acceptability threshold. It's very important that the hierarchy principle is generally applied to problems concerning health and safety in high-risk sector such as industrial engineering. But for us, this logic can represent a general thinking way that can apply when the first aim is the triangular balance between cost, risk, and benefits. For the second point, the very important idea based on this point is to use capital asset pricing model and statistical survey tool together, thus making it possible to assess risk threshold based on two elements, the investment sector and the territorial context in which the project is located. In particular, very important is the definition of the acceptability threshold and the tolerability threshold. The acceptability threshold is the minimum expected return of an investment project whose risk profile represents on average that of the sector companies with worst return. That is those statistically represented in the first quartile. In this case, very important is the estimation of systematic acceptability risk, which is a function of the return of first quartile companies in a given territory. In the same way, we have defined the tolerability threshold is the minimum expected return on an investment project with a risk profile that is statistically represented in the second quartile. So in this case, the systematic tolerable risk is a function of the return of second quartile companies in a given territory. So an investment project has a risk of failure not tolerable if it's measured with respect to the tolerability threshold. Risk of failure is as low as reasonably practicable if is between the two thresholds, and it is broadly acceptable if is measured with respect to tolerability threshold. We apply this model in order to estimation the limit risk threshold for building construction sector in Italy. In this slide, I summarize the financial indices analyzed and the related database source necessary in order to implementation the described model. Here we shows the result of implementation, and in particular the estimation of the tolerable risk and acceptable risk expressed by beta A and beta T parameter. In order to the estimation of this parameter is based on linear regression, and this parameter is a function of the return of the companies in the companies operating in the construction building sector in Italy. So, in particular, an investment project in the construction of a building in Italy for investor is not tolerable if the expected internal rate of return is minor of 7%, is the alert if the internal rate or the expected internal rate of return is between about 7 and about 9%, and is widely acceptable if the expected internal rate of return is a measure of about 9%. In conclusion, with this research, we intend to define objective threshold of acceptability and tolerability of investment risk that can guide the analyst in the financial assessment of a project. The idea is to characterize an innovative approach that makes use of the as low as reasonably practicable logic and the capital asset pricing model. In particular, the implementation of the model can provide the evaluator a more consistent assessment of the triangular balance of risk, cost and benefits, and in this way can be more transparent and rational the decision-making process concerning investment project plans and programs. Thank you for attention.
Okay, thank you, Gabriela, for your presentation. It was also quite comprehensive. My question is, are there any questions from the audience? Liliana, you are welcome.
Yes, since this is thank you for the presentation. It's a quite nice contribution to the other methods, and techniques, to estimate, the investments and the return on investments that are usually in the financial management in the banking sector. So, but I would like to ask you, do you plan to continue work on this this project and this method, evaluation by adding maybe some other non-financial indicators or the parameters? Have you been thinking about that, and in general, is there maybe, of course, feel free to comment if there's something else planned for this. Thank you.
Just a moment. Okay. Thank you for this question. Yes, this as a financial model to estimate the risk analysis related to plans, programs, and investment project. But we think that the other indicator, other element, also extra financial, is very important in order to express a final judgment of on investment. In fact, the future possible research concern the introduction in the evaluation, also the other indicators, environmental indicators, social cultural indicators. In this moment, the research, starts from a financial point of view, but we want to extend the research also considering the other indicators and search other data sources that can improve the research from this point of view.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Thank you, Gabriela, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I actually, my question was similar. I wanted to ask what would be the next step, but you have already answered.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Excuse me. So thank you very much. It was really nice to listen to. And I would kindly ask to invite Gabriele D'Orso
Yes,
to present his talk.
I'm ready. I share the screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes, we can hear you, and please share your screen.
Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, and it's very clear, so feel
Okay.
welcome.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. I'm Gabriele D'Orso. I'm a PhD student at the University of Palermo, Italy. And today I'm very glad to present you a study that I carried out with my colleagues Alessandro Capodici and Marco Migliore. The title of the study is Understanding the Key Factors of Shared Mobility Services, Palermo as a Case Study. In recent years, many companies have entered in the shared mobility market, creating a wide variety of shared mobility services. And these services are incentivized to counteract the excessive use of the private car and air and noise pollution, soil consumption, and also to give concrete form to the concept of mobility as a service. Moreover, the topic of bike sharing and car sharing is more relevant in the post-COVID period, having in mind the need for spatial distancing and also the need of finding a valid alternative to the crowded public transport vehicles. So the aim of the paper was to propose an approach that allows identifying and solving all the possible issues that could arise in operating shared mobility services. In fact, a careful planning and a careful designing of these services is necessary for their success. To highlight how some factors affect the success of the shared mobility services, Palermo has been chosen as a case study. In fact, in Palermo, we have a company called Amat that manages the Amigo platform, that is a bike sharing and car sharing platform. But this company also operates the public transport services in the cities. First of all, we have identified the key success factors and the failure factors. The factors that affects the success are a number of vehicles in the fleet that does not guarantee the availability of the vehicles to users at the time of booking, as well as an inaccurate location of the car sharing and bike sharing stations that are far from the main attractor poles. Also, a poor pedestrian accessibility, or fares perceived as too high by users, or designed without an appropriate graduality. A complex booking system, which requires time and several steps. But also too low fares and a high number of vehicles are possible causes of failure for the companies, because the revenues will not cover the expenses. On the other hand, a good accessibility fares that vary based on the user's demand, or the presence of different types of vehicles in the fleet, and mainly and also the integration with public transports are the main success factors. Our approach integrates theoretical notions with practical analysis and consists of different steps. First of all, we propose to a shared mobility company that would verify the fairness of their services. We propose to check the accessibility of these services. So checking the locations, optimizing the locations of bike sharing and car sharing stations. Another question that the company should ask itself is, are our services integrated with public transport? Then we propose to check also how much the services are easy to use, so the operational issues. And another important thing is the efficiency of the public transport system in the city, because shared mobility services are complementary to public transport. And finally, we propose to check fares and fleets, trying to understand if fares are too high or too low, and if the fleet is undersized or oversized. We have chosen Palermo as a case study, and for the accessibility of the shared mobility services, we use a GIS software combining geographical information with the census data. We use specialized isochrons to find the service areas. So the catchment areas are based on the real distances along the street network, and the maximum distance considered walkable has been set at 500 meters. In this slide, I show you the bike sharing service area, and the bike sharing service has in Palermo 39 cycle docks, and the service, we found that the service could cover the 20% of the active population and the 42% of the total workplaces. However, the main problem for the use of the bike sharing in the city is the lack of cycle infrastructure, as you can see in the little figure in the slide. AMAT operates also a station-based car sharing service with 82 parking spaces, and the service could cover the 38% of the population and the 63% of the total workplaces. But considering the accessibility of both the shared mobility services, they remain inaccessible for the 61% of the potential users. However, 64% of the workplaces are located less than 500 meters from a car sharing station or a bike sharing dock. To assess the level of integration between shared mobility services and public transport, we consider also the high frequency and high regularity public transport services in the city, so trams, high frequency bus lines, and the railway system. And through the GIS-based analysis, we found that only 17% of citizens reside less than 500 meters from both public transport and a car sharing or bike sharing station. So there is a really poor physical integration between shared mobility services and public transport. In fact, only 39 of the 82 car sharing stations and 22 of the 43 bike sharing stations fall within a walkable distance from the stops of high frequency or high regularity public transport line. Then we check how much is the service easy to use through a customer satisfaction survey. And we found that the main issue is the unavailability of closed shared cars at the time of booking. Also, the absence of promotions and a complex booking system are some of the most critical issues of the services. Another critical issue reported by users is the occupation of the stations, of the stalls reserved for car sharing by unauthorized vehicles. Another step of our approach is the assessment of the public transport efficiency. So we made a comparison with other Italian cities, such as Torino, Milano, Bologna, Florence, and Rome. And we found that the waiting time at the public transport stop in Palermo is about 25 minutes, more than double than in Milan, Bologna, and Florence. And this caused the affection of the citizens in Palermo for the private cars. To understand if the fleet is undersized or oversized, and if the cost of the car sharing service is too high or too low, we also compared the car sharing services of the main Italian cities. And we found that Palermo has a smaller fleet of car sharing vehicles compared than the car sharing services in the other Italian cities. And the station-based service fares are lower than those on the market, while the free-floating service fares are in line with the other Italian car-sharing services. In conclusion, through GIS processing, data analysis, and a comparison with the services present in other Italian cities, we found that there is a small car-sharing fleet in Palermo, and public transport services are very less efficient in Palermo. The accessibility to sharing mobility services is also limited, and physical integration with high-frequency or regular public transport lines is poor. Other failure factors are the lack of fair integration with public transport, a complex booking system, and the propensity for the use of the private car by the inhabitants of Palermo. However, the fares were found in line with the services offered in other Italian cities. This approach, the approach here proposed, is generalizable and useful also to identify critical issues and potentialities of shared mobility services in other cities and other contexts. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Well, thank you for a very nice presentation. I find it extremely useful. Also, well, don't leave us, stay for a small question or a couple of questions. Are there any, please? Well, if not, I'd like to ask a question myself. So specifically, I would like to learn whether this nice evidence-based study has been already used in some, like, I don't know, discussion, debate. There are usually a lot of debates on transportation and mobility in cities, and I confirm, I fully support your opinion that this method might be applied also in other contexts. So, so have you tried?
Yes, our paper is could be classified as an experience report, as a collection of best practices that companies have to follow, that companies that want to enter in the market, in the sharing mobility market, have to follow to design a successful shared mobility service. So mainly in this period, in the post-COVID era, in the post-COVID period, this is very important because I'm a civil engineer and my field is the transportation field. So as a civil engineer, as a transportation engineer, I have in this period I have a main goal, that is the goal is trying to reduce the modal split, the modal split towards the private cars, that it is very natural at the moment because of the fearness and the fear about COVID. So we have to propose alternatives to the private cars, and surely sharing mobility services are very could be very effective in this moment.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much, and I find the results really useful. Also, looking at the example of my city, we would need similar study actually. Yeah, so thank you very much. It's been, as it was the last presentation in this session, it's been really a pleasure to meet all of you. I am very happy to have this opportunity to meet you guys, even if only this way. I'd rather, you know, chat and go for a dinner now rather than, you know, wave my hands and say hello and go for a dinner myself to the kitchen, which is not very, you know, like, well, I like my kitchen, but it's nothing to Italian cuisine, which we would taste. But I hope for some opportunity. I am looking deeply into eyes of Beniamino right now. Or some other Italian who are plenty here. So guys, it's been really a pleasure. And if you insist of meeting myself, at least, feel welcome tomorrow to another great session on U-Form, which is a brand new one, so not as popular as this well established, but I hope we have good future. So thank you once again. It's been a really nice opportunity and pleasure. Yeah.
Only one more thing. I want to remember you to compile the environment, evaluation model for each presentation. Yes. Thank you very much.
Yes, we are going to do that, I'm sure.
And also, I invite everybody to the closing keynotes about post-pandemic city. Probably I invite you on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah, this is true. But I think it doesn't need advertising, Beniamino, due to the, you know, these wonderful keynotes you have invited. Yeah.
I hope so.
Yeah. So what is the Italian cuisine for today's dinner, guys? Excuse me for, you know, extending. This was a question.
What are you cooking for the dinner tonight?
For him, for the last speaker.
What?
From Palermo, I don't know. Arancini, no?
Arancini? Okay.
Arancini. Fish.
I'm making a survey, you know. Okay. Well, let's go with this private. Apologies. Well, let's move with this private discussion somewhere else. It's been a pleasure, and thank you once again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. See you.
See you.
Bye.
To go in the other room.
Non ho capito, prof.
No, non era a te, era.
Ah, ok.
Abbiamo la. Grazie di tutto. Sì.
Prof, ti sentiamo male.
Isabella, salta ieri, ma. Pronto?
Pronto, prof, ti sentiamo male. Pronto?
Ah, strano. Pronto?
Sì. Ora ti sentiamo un po' meglio.
E ora?
Non ti sento.
Ma qua mi sentivano o no? Tu? Vabbè, ok, non fa niente.